Hello, hello, comrades. Welcome back to the Liberation Hour. This is your host, Comrade Felicity, coming at you pre-recorded. Yes, folks. Sorry, not sorry. Yes, folks, I am back once again this week, and I am joined by my cat, Queenie, who is trying to walk all over my laptop. Stop it, please. Please stop it. Thank you. And I'm here to bring you guys the news and a very fun episode, pre-recorded episode with Comrade Kamalo and some really nice comrades from outside the party who joined us for an interview asking Kamalo questions about the APL and anti-revisionist action and organizing. And so we had a really wonderful discussion. It was super fun, and I am so incredibly excited to show you guys this present it to you all. And if you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comments, and perhaps someone will come and answer them. A Kamalo named person. I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But there are always other comrades who will answer questions as well. So other than that, before we get started, top of the hour disclaimer, WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign online community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not meant to represent WRFU, UCIMC. Folks. Yes, Queenie, that's correct. Yes. Do you have anything else to say about that? All right. So Queenie has weighed in. And Queenie has said that the first thing that we need to be covering today in this news segment is, let me turn on my volume real fast. The first thing that we need to be reporting on in this segment is the meatpacker strike. Yes, folks, I am referencing Labor Notes. This is an organization who they do a lot of reporting on the labor movement and labor organizing, and I really appreciate their work. I've been using a lot of their articles in the last, I think, few months at this point. They're wonderful. And so this article was written, I want to say 3 days ago, March 22nd, 2026, and it is titled, "In 57 Languages, Meatpackers Strike for the First Time in 40 Years." Crazy. That is such a good hook. I'm excited to read this. Again, we always love to see workers striking to gain better wages, to improve their material conditions, and to practice some collective organizing and some collective action. So I'm really happy about this. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. So, in less than a quarter-mile stretch of sidewalk, chatter in 57 languages overlaps with the sound of dancehall bachata, Thai pop, Haitian compa, and Micronesian hip hop. Micronesian. I don't know what that is. Please, someone in the comments, if you know who or what that may be, I would love to know. Actually, let me just. This is so. Hold on. What is? Wait, okay. You know what? I'm not going to try to look this up. I'm holding the mic in one hand. I cannot multitask with one. No. Okay. Anyway, Micronesian hip hop. If you know what it is, please let me know, because that sounds kind of interesting. At sunset, dozens gather for iftar, breaking their Ramadan fast. The music pulsing from boomboxes and cell phones, held up to megaphones, swells into one shared hum. Wow. Awesome. So we can see a lot of multiculturalism here, and I think that, and a lot of, collaboration between cultures to, celebrate their class solidarity. And I think that that's so beautiful, and it's something that we need to really highlight within the labor movement. Being a proletarian internationalist does not mean that we let go of cultural ties or things that make us connected to the land and the people around us. And Queenie, no! She walked across my... Okay. You keep interrupting. Anyway, practicing multiculturalism within the labor movement is still so important, and recognizing that we all have different beliefs, we all have grew up in different material circumstances, with different exposure to different cultural norms, and so coming from a place of informed solidarity and understanding where everybody's coming from and meeting them where they're at, and that goes both ways, meeting each other where you're at, and doing the work to be in solidarity with one another. This is so important, within the labor movement, and I just love to see it. Okay, so continuing. In this sliver of land across the sprawling JBS beef processing plant, among the largest in the country, workers from around the world have united in the largest U.S. meatpacking strike in 40 years. The 3,800 workers at the JBS beef processing plant in Greeley, Colorado, walked off the job on Monday, March 16th, launching a 2-week unfair labor practice strike. This is the company's flagship beef plant in the U.S. Its previous contract with Food and Commercial Workers, Local 7, expired last July. Strikers say JBS has been increasing the speed of the production line while cutting work hours from 40 a week to 35, squeezing out more work for less money. 1,000 Haitian workers at the Greeley plant have filed a class action lawsuit against JBS for discriminatory practices that push them to work at dangerously fast speed lines, or line speeds. Line speed is a major issue in the meatpacking industry. The UFCW International recently spoke out against a new proposal from the Department of Agriculture to remove federal limits on line speeds entirely. Quote, "We're demanding our rights, both in terms of wages and working conditions, because before the strike, they really took advantage of us," said a worker from the brisket trim department, who spoke in Spanish and asked to remain anonymous. They want the same output, but fewer hours and fewer people. After 18 years working at JBS, he said, "Everything is so expensive. Everything has gone up. Everything except our wages." Interesting. Yes. So what a well written article, first of all. And second, this is why labor solidarity is so important. As we can see with the Nazi Trump government, the fascist Trump government, and just like the fascist government in general, this is not limited to Trump. I am going to correct myself there, because we need to remove this mindset that it is just Donald Trump. No, this is across the board. These people are fascists, and with or without Trump, they are fascist. He just happens to be the mouthpiece. But as it relates to the Department of Agriculture and removing federal limits on line speeds, they are working lockstep, is that how you say it? They are working hand in hand. They are working hand in hand with big corporations and capital, because this bourgeois government is in fact run by capital. That's how it works. To assume that somehow I think the liberal assumption that government is this some kind of weird free floating entity that exists in a vacuum and isn't affected by capital accumulation and what capitalism demands of the capitalist. The concept that they aren't going to abuse their power and their wealth of resources and their wealth of cash to influence things to directly materially benefit them. I mean, it's just crazy that people still think that we can somehow have democracy and have capitalism. These two things are mutually exclusive. You can't have both. And so, in relation to this meatpacking strike, I think it's really amazing that these workers are taking the initiative, and doing what they have to do, because, nothing is going to change unless we put ourselves on the line, unless we challenge power directly. And we do it in a smart way. We don't practice adventurous tactics, and we, remain in good, I would say, what's the word I'm trying to find here? We understand where the labor movement is at, And, we don't try to practice tactics that are going to alienate us from where the masses are. And so as we, continue to raise class consciousness, it's incredibly important to recognize where, this is a movement that is ripe for radicalization towards Marxism, and actually understanding, scientifically why their conditions are the way they are and how they can change that. I think that, and I feel like, there's probably elements of that. I hope so. So Colorado comrades, I'm calling on you. Go to the masses, go to the meatpackers. Okay, so let's continue here. One wrong move can take your life, and that is that's like a quote that they took out of here. So workers are also demanding that the company stop charging them out-of-pocket costs for personal protective equipment like mesh vests and arm guards, essential because they work with knives, saws, and other sharp, dangerous equipment. JBS garnishes workers' wages with equipment needs to be replaced due to daily wear and tear, damage, or theft. This gear can cost workers up to $1,100 taken directly from their paychecks without their consent. Okay, that's insane. That's crazy. That's okay. So you're going to cut their hours, keep their wages low, speed up the production line at a dangerously fast pace that can actually hurt people, and then and then make them pay for their own protective gear, as this corporation puts them in a bigger at a bigger risk for safety. I mean, what the hell? All right. Moving on. I quote, "I have never experienced anything harder than this in my life," said Tashale Dubby. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Who works on the truck line. JBS was his first job after moving to the U.S. from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Quote, "One wrong move can take your life away." The various jobs mentioned in this article are all similar. Cow carcasses are moving along on a conveyor belt, and the workers are very quickly cutting them into smaller pieces and trimming the fat off the fat with knives. "Access to the equipment is essential for us," said Brett Tanner, who moved here from Arkansas and has worked as a ribber at JBS since 2024. Quote, "Personally, I do love my job. I really do. We feed America, but it's stressful sometimes. The hours we work, and the physical toll the job does take on my body. Meatpacking jobs are among the most dangerous in the country. Workers on the picket line showed cuts, deep calluses, and chemical burns on their hands from years at the plant. Repetitive motion injuries are also common. Slips, falls, and machinery crushes can even be fatal. In 2021, a worker at the Greeley plant died after falling into a vat of chemicals." Oh God, that's my worst fear, actually. Isn't that how the Joker? Okay, moving on. Quote, our hard work makes JBS a profitable company, the biggest meatpacking company in the world, Dottie said. Quote, "Doing this hard work, everyone deserves the highest respect. Our pay is generally good relative to the rest of the country, but for this specific job, I don't think it's even close to what we deserve." Period. And he's right. It feels empowering that we have so many people standing together to send a message that we want better pay. We want more access to equipment, Tanner said. And this next section is titled "Facing Down a Corporate Giant." Organizing across many languages and cultures has been a historical constant in the meatpacking sector. Union drives in the 1930s brought back Black, Mexican, and Eastern European immigrant workers to build some of the earliest meatpacking unions in the U.S. This is the first strike ever at the Greeley plant, and the first major U.S. meatpacking strike since the 1985 to 1986 strike at the Hormel plant in Austin, Minnesota. In parentheses, there were wildcat walkouts at Smithfield Foods in Tar Heel, North Carolina in 2006 and 2007. At Hormel, 1,500 members of UFCW Local P9 struck for 13 months, refusing concessions that their international union was pressing them to accept. The Hormel strike galvanized grassroots support from across the country, though ultimately the workers were defeated by the powerful forces arrayed against them. Over the last few years, UFCW Local 7 has built up a fighting reputation with some of the largest strikes in the union. Last year, 10,000 Kroger grocery workers at Local 7 went on strike for 2 weeks in February, followed by another 7,000 grocery workers at Safeway in June. But meatpacking workers face a steep uphill battle as they fight for better conditions. Union density in the industry has fallen precipitously. Up to 90% of meatpacking workers belonged to unions in the post-war era, but only 15% did by 2019. As the industry consolidated and shuttered unionized plants, only to restart production in non-union plants. The meatpacking industry is now so concentrated that the, quote, big four companies, JBS, Tyson, Cargill, and National Beef, control 85% of beef processing in the U.S. JBS acquired the Greeley plant when it bought Swift & Co. In 2007, one of the many acquisitions and mergers on its road to becoming the world's largest meatpacker. Meatpacking companies have been reaping record benefits since the COVID pandemic, in parentheses, notwithstanding fines for price fixing. Even as communities suffer from plant closures and beef prices soar for consumers. JBS, a multinational based in Brazil, is the U.S.'s largest beef processor and also owns the second largest chicken processor, Pilgrim's Pride. It provides meat products for fast food chains like McDonald's and Burger King, as well as wholesalers and grocers like Costco and Kroger. Even in an industry known for greed and law-breaking, JBS has a notorious reputation. The company paid a $4 million fine last year after the Department of Labor found that cleaning contractors at the Greeley plant were using child labor. It also paid $55 million in a $200 million meatpacking industry settlement over collusion to repress wages. I mean, come on, they're just doing it out in the open. Can you believe this? Come on, people. And this is insane. For a long time, the company's efforts to get listed in the New York Stock Exchange was held up by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission due to extensive corruption scandals and the company's role in deforesting the Amazon rainforest. In January 2025, Pilgrim's Pride made the single largest donation to Trump's inauguration committee, $5 million, leading to allegations of a quid pro quo. A few months later, the SEC approved the stock exchange listing. Okay, yeah, well, no surprise there. Geez, I'm already at 17 minutes reading this. We're finishing this out. This is so important. National negotiations. The Greeley plant is one of dozens of JBS plants represented by the UFCW. 14 of these plants, including 26,000 workers and 12 locals, are now covered by a national contract that was settled for the first time last May. Local 7, which opted out of national negotiations, is pushing beyond this agreement, citing higher costs of living in Colorado. Yeah, I can second that, attest to that one for sure. The national contract included wins on regulating line speeds, including steward training and provisions for walking stewards who are empowered to move around the plant to proactively enforce the contract and who are paid by the company rather than the union. And improvements to wages and sick leave. A particular triumph was the establishment of a new Taft-Hartley pension plan. Pensions used to be standard within meatpacking. The UFCW touted this as one of the this one as the first to be offered by a meatpacking employer since 1986. At least one news report speculated that JBS agreed to a pension as an optics move to get its stock listing approved by the SEC. That said, the national JBS pension plan is relatively modest, starting at contributions of 10 cents per hour worked in the first year of the contract and increasing by 10 cents per hour each additional year. Local 663 and Local 1846 negotiated separate language to give individual members the choice whether to continue with their previous 401k or opt into the pension. Nearly a dozen UFCW locals have been showing up in solidarity at the picket lines and Local 7, including Local 663 from Minnesota and Local 431 from Iowa, which were part of national negotiations. Local 7 announced at the outset that this would be a limited duration 2-week strike. It could be shorter, the local has stated, if JBS agrees to come back to the bargaining table and negotiate in good faith. We hope that we get justice and that other meatpacking processing plants stand up and get justice too, said the anonymous worker, who was originally from Mexico. For the good of the Latino community and for the workers and for the workers above all, period. No, and that is so that was such a, I don't even care that we spent 20 minutes on that. Like, that was such a good article, first of all, and second, I really appreciate, so the people who wrote this were Caitlin Clark and Lisa Zhu, XU. That's I believe that's a Chinese name. If I'm saying that wrong, please correct me. Caitlin Clark, I didn't know you had a game like that. Probably a different Caitlin Clark, not the one who plays basketball. But either way, this is so incredibly important. The fact that, they're out there interviewing these workers, giving them a voice, giving them, like the ability to, speak their mind and talk about what really matters. This is so important, like I was going to go ahead and cover the Iran war. I'm probably going to skip that because everybody knows what's going on there. It's been a lot. But, I think that, as we see the world, being lit on fire by fascists and capital, we have to remember that, there's still things that we can do at home. And it's incredibly important to be, present in your community and be present in what you can do here now. What we need to be doing as Americans is, not only pressuring our own government to stop doing what it's been doing, to stop with this fascist agenda, and to eventually overtake it with a proletarian revolution. But what we also need to be doing is raising the class consciousness of, your everyday average worker in America. We need to be raising that class consciousness to a point in which we can actually, organize, a true workers' revolutionary movement. And this is how we do it. This is how we start. It starts with, showing up to organizing events, showing up to union strikes, showing up to tenant strikes, being a figure in the community, being someone, someone that workers and folks can rely on, as a pillar in the community. We're all pillars. We can all uphold the community, and that's what we should be doing. And so showing up in solidarity for meatpackers, for the meatpackers strike, and recognizing their cross-cultural, solidarity and how just beautiful, it is that that this is happening. It truly is. This is great to see. I'm so happy about this. And, we need to continue to show up for them. So if you live in Colorado, if you know somebody, in the meatpacking industry, if, whatever you can do, whatever proximity you are, to this situation, we do what we can. And so, moving on, so I was going to cover, like I said, what's going on in Iran, but I feel like everyone is pretty glued to the situation as it is. I'm sure everybody's been keeping track, at least a little bit of what's going on. And so I'm going to be skipping that for today. For the last 7 minutes, before I go ahead and play that segment with Comrade Kamalo and the comrades who ask great questions, I want to direct everyone's attention to what's been going on in Missouri. So this just came out on the 24th, yesterday, at around 4 p.m. Missouri Supreme Court hands GOP a win in redistricting battle. So, this is pretty bad. Here's the thing. Electoral politics don't actually matter, unless you're running as like a true, communist and for a communist party and representing that. Electoral politics, in general are not the end all be all, very far from it actually. And but this is still, I want to direct people's attention to this because of just how overt and insane this situation is, and how I don't want to hear from anybody about how, oh, we've changed, we've moved on. This is the type of stuff they were doing back in like the Jim Crow era. This is the stuff that they were like, this is ridiculous. Okay. And anybody that's going to sit here and harp on this concept of, how America is, has changed and is such a progressive, not even a progressive country. I don't think any right winger would say that. But, I've heard people like my own grandma say like, actually, racism doesn't exist anymore. We defeated that back in civil rights. Obviously not. Yeah, crazy. So I'm just going to read through this real fast and give some commentary. So this is a political article, once again, this is bourgeois media. So grain of salt. This is by Aaron Pellish. And here's a little tagline. A Tuesday decision from the state's top court makes it more likely that Republicans will pick up a seat in Missouri, but it is not expected to be the final word before November. Missouri Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday that the legislature did not violate the state's constitution when it drew new congressional maps last year favoring Republicans, delivering a major blow to Democrats' hopes of blocking the new map ahead of the midterms. A 4-3 decision, the court ruled... In the 4-3 decision, the court ruled that a clause in the state constitution directing Missouri lawmakers to draw new maps after each census does not impose restrictions on the legislature from taking up redistricting in the middle of the decade. Quote, the obligation to legislate congressional districts once a decade does not limit the General Assembly's power to redistrict more frequently than once a decade, Judge Zell Fisher wrote in the majority opinion. The decision came after Missouri Republicans jumped into the nationwide redistricting battle triggered by President Donald Trump's push for the states with Republican-controlled legislatures to create new GOP-leaning seats. Missouri's new map, which would net the GOP one additional seat by breaking up Rep. Emanuel Cleaver's Kansas City-based seat, faced little resistance in the legislature and was quickly approved by Republican Governor Mike Kehoe. I don't know how you say that. Kehoe? Okay. It has since been the subject of several lawsuits and a well-funded campaign to force the map into a ballot referendum, as Democrats race to respond with gerrymandering of their own in states they control. This is ridiculous. Okay, anyway. The 4 judges siding with the majority were appointed by Republican governors, while a 5th Republican appointed judge sided in dissent with the 2 judges on the court appointed by Democratic governors. The question around the limits of the state's constitution imposed on the legislature centered on the implied meaning of the word when. Which Judge Paul Wilson said in his dissenting opinion was the most important word of the relevant clause. The state's constitution directs the legislature to draw new congressional districts when, ... the census of 1950 and each census thereafter is certified by certified to the governor. Simply put, when does not mean only when, Fisher wrote in the majority. The ruling delivers a significant victory for Republicans as they seek to overcome a well-organized effort by Democrats to reverse the new congressional map. But the fate of Missouri's new map still hangs in the balance as Democrats continue to pursue multiple avenues to repeal the new map. The Democratic-aligned National Redistricting Foundation is asking the state's Supreme Court to take up the question of whether the new map violates the state constitution's direct compactness requirement in a separate lawsuit. And a group of Missouri Democrats are seeking to freeze the map by forcing it to a referendum, which has been the subject of several legal challenges. A freeze could effectively keep the map used in 2024 in place, preserving that deep blue Democratic seat. Democrats in Missouri have scored some small victories in their referendum push. On Monday, People Not Politicians, the group advocating for a referendum, announced the Secretary of State's office validated the number of petition signatures needed to force a referendum. Secretary of State Denny Hoskins, a Republican, has not yet determined whether the map will reach the ballot and has until late July to decide. In another win for Democrats, the state court on Friday ordered Hoskins to rewrite the ballot summary of a potential referendum to remove multiple instances of argumentative language. Democrats appealed to the state Supreme Court on Monday asking for another rewrite of the ballot summary. Okay, so quickly, how do I feel about this? Well, I'm actually moving to Kansas City. Yes, I am moving to Kansas City, Missouri in about a month and a half. I'm graduating college and my boyfriend is actually from Kansas City. So I don't think this is a good thing, obviously. Like I'm not a fan of when Republicans do bad things. I also think that I think that this would be consequential in that it would definitely obviously give the Republicans an upper hand. And it could be a deciding factor in, federal, decisions at the, I guess, I think, from a Marxist perspective, when we look at electoral politics and, redistricting and everything, this has been a part of American politics forever. This is not new. And what we need to be focused on is organizing the working class around, actually pushing for better. The Democrats in this situation, I mean, sure, I'm not against what they're advocating for necessarily. I don't think it's a good idea to give Missouri one more seat for a Republican and gerrymander the city because, that's bad. I also think that it shouldn't be our only thing that we're advocating for. I think that, for example, on the ground in Kansas City Kansas City Tenants Union has been incredibly consequential, in changing the lives of Kansas City Missourians. And so, putting our energy into that, I think, is ultimately going to be more important for the material circumstances of working people in Missouri than focusing on this. But I do still think it's important to recognize. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and transition us over to the pre-recorded segment with Comrade Kamalo. And I'm so incredibly excited to show you guys this episode. And if you have any extra questions for the party or for the movement at large, please leave them in the comment section. And I will see y'all next week. Bye. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the show. This is episode 37. This is the second episode of the Liberation Hour I am recording today. I actually just did an episode earlier this morning with the Red Youth Rising National Committee. So we've got two sides of a similar coin today with recording. So that's exciting. But today we have a panel of guests from outside of the APL who are interested in asking questions of our national chair, Camilo. Camilo, you have been on the show many times before.
Oh, and I'm glad to be here. Always happy to be here. But I'm going to start demanding royalties,
We've been having this back and forth. Yes. But we have some lovely guests here today to ask you some wonderful questions that have been curated. And I think it's going to be a very fruitful conversation, and I'm excited to get started. So the way this is going to work is we have an order of people. And, just to make my life easier, I'm going to write it down real fast because I will forget. And let me make sure. Okay, we got that. I just had to get out my sticky notes real fast. And okay. Now I've got it written down so I will not forget. Okay, so the way this is going to go is we've got Fred, Statesian Bolshevik, Shabazz, me, who will be standing in for a comrade who could not make it, and then River, who will be typing it out, so I will be
will be saying it for everybody to listen to. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. This is this is all kinds of questions. These questions have been decided on before for the audience. So we're not just pulling these out of thin air. These have been talked about. So Comrade Fred, if you want to go ahead and go first with your question, we're going to go one at a time. So if you have multiple, just ask one first, and we'll go from there.
All right. Uh, Give me a second to pull up my question as I have to switch tabs.
You're good.
Uh,
Yeah, take your time.
my first question is that um, so I've done some organizing in my time, and as I live as an organizer who lives in a smaller town, though not far from a bigger city, should I focus more on the organizing amongst the people in the city or people in the town as a start? This is a question that I ask because I know that a lot of people who are communists might have similar situations.
Okay, and thank you. That's an excellent question. Um, what I always tell people, especially people who find themselves in a similar situation, they're in a small town or they're in a far suburb or what have you, and sometimes they'll despair. I'm not in the city center. I'm not in New York. I'm not in Chicago. I'm not in LA. I'm out here in this little small town. Well, my response to that is there's always something going on.
Hmm.
I live in a small town myself. There's always something going on. What you need to do is find a way to put your finger on the pulse of what's going on. There may very well be library bulletin boards where people put up a meeting about this, a public forum about that. Check those things out. Many communities have community newspapers. Check out what's going on in the community newspaper. There are school board meetings. There are all kinds of issues. For example, where I live, there was a recent issue about in my neighborhood. Some company wanted to build a rock quarry, and the community was all up in arms about the environmental impact and the destruction that rock quarry was going to cause. There were public meetings about that. Go to those meetings.
Right.
Attend if there's a struggle going on. Some reactionary fundamentalist group wants to pull books from the public library. There's a public meeting about that. Attend that meeting. There's a controversy going on at the school board. MAGA types are infiltrating the school board. Go to that meeting. Go to the meeting about whatever it may be: rent control, crime, high cost of living. There's always something going on in your community. Your job then becomes, as an organizer, to tap into what's going on and be there.
Right. That sounds like a very good explanation of what we should do just in general in our communities.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's the old adage, all politics is local, and there's a certain amount of truth in that. If only on the
Right.
sense that that's where people live, and that's where the issues that most directly affect people's lives are. We need to be there.
Right. Right. That is the. I mean, I believe there. I might be paraphrasing this quote, but I believe it's in either proletarian democracy or socialism is built by the masses. That the place for the communist, this is a Koja quote, is that the place for the communist is always at the grassroots.
Yes, take it further. The place for the communists is where the people are.
Right.
And be that your workplace, your school, your community, that's where you need to be.
Right. Thank you for answering my question.
Not at all. My pleasure.
Awesome. That was a really good question. Local organizing is always incredibly important, and I understand how hard it can be to find something to focus on. I've lived in small towns, big cities, so many different places. So that was a wonderful question, Comrade Fred. Next up, Stacey and Bolshevik.
Hello.
Hey there.
Okay, well, first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Loud
Yes.
and clear.
Alrighty.
Absolutely.
Good. Alright, let me just pull up my question here. Alright. As the official chairman of the American Party of Labor, I just want to know, what is your official stance regarding the American quote-unquote Communist Party? And my reasons for asking, if I may, is that its chairman, well, cult leader to be more correct, Haz al-Din of Infrared, has stated in one of his recent internet live streams that, quote, to all of our left liberal ops who hate and will never join the ACP, please join the APL, the Hojaist party, unquote. And also because of the members of the actual quote-unquote leadership of the ACP, including but not limited to Haas, as I just basically explained, and Eddie Liger Smith of the Midwestern quote-unquote Marx Institute, have all opportunistically praised Comrade Hoxha only due to his praise and defense of Comrade Stalin, despite the fact that Comrade Hoxha had rightfully criticized Dengist China, Tito-White Yugoslavia, and the post-Stalin USSR for restoring capitalism. And it is because of that reason alone that if Comrade Enver Hoxha were alive today, then the members of the leadership of the ACP would have instantly called him a so-called purity fetishist because of his staunch and consistent anti-revisionism. And I would also like to briefly take this time to apologize if this was a little bit long. I'm a stickler for establishing context. And that's my piece.
Okay. No, not at all. Thoroughness is appreciated, believe me. I'm familiar with that that I don't know, do we glorify it by calling it a statement on the part of Haas? Yeah, it raised quite a few eyebrows and more than a few twitters of laughter, twitters of laughter on the part of comrades in the APL.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, Haas loves doing cosplay. I mean, even the name Haas, that's not his real name, and it's Sultan Haas al-Din the Merciless. And he's appeared wearing a fez, which, by the way, in the Middle East is considered a reactionary emblem, or has appeared dressed up in this sort of all leather pseudo Turkic Mongol outfit. So I joked that since he's Sultan Haz al-Din the Merciless, that I should respond to him by saying, Your Excellency, we are most grateful for your directing individuals who are displeased with your party to our organization. Thank you so very much. Signed, Camillus Augustus, Emperor of the West. um, but they're a bad joke. Not that I would dismiss them entirely, because they do represent a certain tendency. So if you asked me in one word to describe them, Nosballs. Nosballs. With probably a greater emphasis on the Nas side of it than the bowl. And APL has written a few things about them, a few pieces about them, and this is nothing new. We've seen similar formations, going back to the 1920s. They're fascists, pure and simple. They're fascists. They are linked, and some people have done deep dives exploring these links to the LaRouchites. Haas himself has presented, made speeches at the Schiller Institute, which is the LaRouchite think tank. So they're in very, very tight with the LaRouchite fascists. They promote Duginism and Eurasianism, fascist ideologies. So what else is there to say? I mean, they are fascists.
Also, within the party, we do call this so-called Midwestern Marx, we instead call him Midwestern Mussolini.
Mm.
So there is that.
Oh, by the way, for those comrades who are not part of the APL, and don't know, we have a lively sense of humor in our party. We refer to ourselves as the laughing Hojaists.
We do.
Sorry for butting in. I imagine that a great sense of humor is something that every revolutionary must have.
Oh, there's a wonderful quote that I love. You gotta slightly disregard who said it, because the guy was
Wasn't it
kind of
Ortega?
no, it was Parvis, also known as
Oh,
his real name, Alexander Hellpound. He was kind of even a proto-Trotskyist. It was like Trotsky attached himself to him in his early days. Lenin despised him. He was a war profiteer, among other things. Um, and he made a killing selling during World War I, selling weapons to both the Allies and the Central Powers. But he said, and I totally agree with him on this at least, if there's one thing a socialist revolutionary needs, it's a sense of humor.
right. Apologies for butting in.
Oh, not at all.
No, it's okay. But yeah, no, that's a great question, Stacey and Bolshevik. Unfortunately, you know, I do want to say I don't know why the ACP feels the need to somehow attach themselves to us, if not for the fact that they are probably one of the most illegitimate communist parties. Um, and the fact is that they don't have strong ideological like grounding and are incredibly reactionary. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Haas said that to try to give themselves some kind of credibility um, as communists, which, of course, as you've heard from Camilo's answer, we do not give.
Yeah, yeah, and of course I agree with everything you say, and in regards to Haas saying that, I don't know if you're able to see it, but I left a video that was uploaded to a Twitter by a comrade within the APL, and I think for purposes I'd rather not say who it is, unless if you want, to give them proper credit, of the actual clip where Haas does try attach himself, well, I should say his organization, well, if you want to call it that, to the APL.
Well, as I said, we thank His Excellency the Sublime Sultan very much.
Yeah, and also, as it recently dawned on me, could you briefly comment on their sort of catch-all term for all of their critics, their they're purity fetishists. If you can briefly comment on that as their basically catch-all phrase and their theoretical framework to disregard all of the criticisms that people have made about them over the years.
Well, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. It's their catch-all phrase. There's no thought behind it. It's not a reasoned rebuttal, much less a dialogue. It's just dismissing. So rather than deal with the criticisms that have been raised, if you're sincere, if they really mean it when they call themselves communists, which of course they don't, but they would respond to the criticisms. If Haas really meant it, I would I'd sit down to a dialogue with him. I'd debate him, but he doesn't. And I've seen how he treats people who do debate him by flying off the handle and going into I suppose, staged rage and becoming abusive and obscene. But yeah, that's their way of not dealing with the contradictions, of avoiding having to face up to what genuine communists have to say about them. And I'm not just saying I'm not just saying the APL. Obviously, APL, we consider that we have the correct line, but well, let's be generous. I haven't seen them debate anyone from CPUSA or Frizzo or Workers' World or PSL or any of the various Maoist organizations that exist. What are they afraid of?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, sorry, go
Yeah, no.
ahead, Camilo.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
yeah.
they just prefer just shoving everything under the table. Oh, those are purity fetishists. Well, okay, if you want to call us that, we prefer to say we're Marxist-Leninists. What are you?
Yeah, and it's also the fact is that Haas Socialism for All has commented on ACP, I think, a lot and plentifully so. He loves to throw slurs as well at people. So anybody who is unfamiliar, who may be listening to this recording, who is unfamiliar with the ACP, first of all, don't waste your time trying to do serious research into them. All you have to do is see the clips of Haas throwing slurs at people for absolutely no reason because he's angry. And you can see that he is there. There are no legitimate communists who are part of the ACP.
Would you mind if I add a comment?
Go ahead,
Please,
yeah.
please do.
I remember actually not joining in. I remember listening to one of these rants by Haz, and I was thinking, and I know I'm quoting Hoja here again, is that uh, there's a quote from Hoja on the something about the Marxist-Leninists are not fanatical or conservative in any way,
Hmm.
and I mean it takes it in the whole turn is that if you don't support groups, like of course like you have to maintain the class focus. The focus is that with the issues like race, homophobia, all those things are rooted in class. Is that however, if you don't support those groups, you're not really a Marxist Leninist if you're just calling people slurs.
Well, of course. Are we going to throw the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, the most oppressed among the oppressed to the tender mercies of the right and religious fanatics and not defend them, not
I mean,
stand up for them, not make that an essential part of the class struggle and our efforts as a party? We wouldn't be communists if we did that. It would be
right.
unthinkable. But regarding
Yes.
Haas, there is a guy. He's still around, though not as popular as he used to be. So maybe the younger comrades might not be familiar with him. But he has a YouTube channel called Maoist Rebel News.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, Jason Unruh. And back in his heyday, Jason Unruh, he's like the quintessential debate bro. He was ranting and raving about how no one would debate him, and therefore we're all cowards and scared. And he's actually called me out by name. He called me and this fellow who's affiliated with Freedom Road, called us both out by name. And I remember in the aftermath of that, some comrades were coming up to, "Oh, would you debate him? Are you going to debate him? You should debate him. You should debate him." I said, "No, I would no more debate him than I would debate if I were a scientist. I would no more debate him than I would debate a flat earther.
Right.
If I'm debating him, it means that number
You're
one,
validating his points.
yeah, his points are valid and open to debate. Number two, that there's actually an audience to be won over. And this is what a lot of people don't get when they read Lenin and how Lenin actively polemicized against this tendency and that error and this mistake. And they say we should do the same thing. Well, remember the milieu that Lenin found himself in, which we are not in. In early 20th century Russia, there was an audience to be won. There was a vibrant revolutionary tradition going back 100 years, going back to the Decembrists in the 18 teens and 20s, who are eager to hear. And these were vital and, in his own words, burning questions of our movement. So in that case, these are valid issues, important issues. There's an audience to be won over. Then, of course, you're going to debate and polemicize. But to give someone clicks and likes on YouTube, no, I got better things to do. And I actually responded to a comrade who said, "Oh, you should debate him. You should debate him." I said, "No, because if I were to take this seriously, and why would I do it if I didn't take this seriously? Then the time that I would have to spend preparing for the debate, marshaling my sources, looking up statistics, quotations, facts, and figures, all of that time that I would have to spend in preparation for a serious debate, I got better things to do. That's time that I wouldn't be spending with my comrades. That's time that I wouldn't be spending doing party work. That's time that I wouldn't be spending with my friends and family and loved ones. So no. And the same thing would apply to someone like Oz.
Yeah.
Well, the way I'd put it is you don't debate fascists.
Oh, well, there's that, of course.
There is that. Yeah. Well, wonderful question. Let's move on to Shabazz. What do you have to, what is your question, comrade?
Hey, I have like 3 or so questions, like 4 or so,
That's
because I
okay.
just came up with some as I was here because I was just curious.
Yeah, start with
For
the
the
first
first
one.
one, how do we know that the APL is prepared to accept and integrate more members, especially if they come in large waves? And what would be done for members, if there are large groups of members who come in who aren't in distance of like already established APL chapters?
Okay. That's a question that we have to deal with on a daily basis because we do get people applying all the time. I will say though that our membership requirements are pretty strict, and there is a whole vetting and interview process involved before we admit someone to the first level of membership, which is candidacy. And we did that because one thing we definitely wanted to avoid was the kind of I don't know, what do you want to call it? Open enrollment that a lot of other parties have. Like I remember back when I was a kid applying to the CPUSA youth group, and it was clip out this coupon at the back of the paper, mail it in, and we'll send you a membership card, and you're a member of the what it was called then, Young Workers Liberation League. Oh, come on. Yeah, that's supposed to be the vanguard party. That's the best of the best, the most advanced. Yes, clip in a coupon and send it in. No. So we went very much in a different direction. So are we prepared to accept a mass influx of people? No. Depends what that mass influx is. Now, one thing that I think is very, very important and always needs to be borne in mind is that not everyone can or even should be a party member. Party membership puts demands on you. It's a huge responsibility. The way I sometimes refer to it is party members are like commissioned officers in the Army of the Revolution. Well, you don't just get handed a commission because you mailed in a coupon. There is definitely a role, and maybe even a more important role. Maybe we need more than actual cadre party members. We need friends. We need sympathizers. We need supporters. We need allies. Now, could APL build a mass organization? Yes, we're looking at that. Could APL build a youth organization? Well, we've already helped out in the creation of RYR. Although it's not officially, let me emphasize that, the RYR is not the party's youth organization. It's a youth organization that's sort of affiliated with the party. Could we do more of that? Absolutely. Will we do more of that? We want to. Let's see how conditions unfold. Now, when someone joins the party, yeah, there is a process where someone is first admitted as a candidate, and then there is a whole period where we integrate them into the work. We see how they fit into the work. We see how they adapt to the internal culture of the party. They're given specific tasks or connected with specific party activities. And then we evaluate and we see. And after a certain period of time, then they could be, for want of a better term, graduated into full party members, full cadre. In terms of people who find themselves isolated or away from a party organization, well, that kind of ties into the earlier question that we had. What about people who are in small towns or what have you? Well, then in that case, there is a network. The party does have a network to support people that are in situations like that. But for such a person, their primary task would be to create a party structure or a party organization in their locality. That would be their main responsibility. But as I said, a mass influx of people, well, that depends on what that mass influx is. That depends on where that mass influx is. Believe me, no one will be turned away. We'll find something for you.
Oh, okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much. And then I have another question. I want to preface this by saying that I completely understand as to why there is an anonymity.
Mhm.
Because the truth is we are like under the rule of like a very fascist government. And you could easily, especially if you do work in government as like a street level bureaucrat, you could work for like CPS or the post office. You could easily have your job like taken from you. But from the outside looking in, how are members of the public supposed to trust APL members if they remain anonymous? And how do we know that APL members are experienced and that they have the organizational capacity to be a vanguard party? And also, just how long has the APL been around?
Okay, let me take your questions in reverse order.
Mhm.
So the APL actually has a very long history if you want to do a deep dive. Um, and even going back all the way to the CPUSA of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and the Communist Party of Great Britain of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So that's our deep origins. Um, you know what? Let me actually fill it out for you. So imagine two parallel lines, a chart. So line one, first box, Communist Party USA. Line two, first box, Communist Party of Great Britain. Arrow, line one, William Z. Foster. Arrow, line two. I want to say Harry Pollitt, even though he was a good guy, a good comrade, he did make some mistakes, but just for completeness sake. All right, so line one, William Z. Foster, arrow one, Harry Pollitt. But then here's where it starts to get interesting. Next arrow, line one, Jack Schulman, who was William Z. Foster's secretary. Next arrow, line two, Bill Bland. Next arrow, and this is now the two arrows converge. The two arrows converge into international struggle Marxist-Leninist. Then an arrow from that, Alliance Marxist-Leninist North America. Then off to the side, another box saying Committee to form an American Party of Labor. And then finally at the bottom, all lines converging, APL. So that's like the deep history to APL. But an organization by the name of American Party of Labor. So when was the actual organization with that name founded? 2008. I joined and I was with Alliance Marxist-Leninist. And we had heard that there was something called an American Party of Labor that people were talking about forming. Now, remember, this is the early 2000s, so a lot of the internet capabilities for connecting with people wasn't there. So we had heard, but didn't really have much contact. We tried to check out, okay, so who are these people? What's their line? What's their position? What's their ideological stance? We heard back some positive things, but there was just no communication until 2010. I connected with someone who was part of the newly formed APL, and they recruited me. And so I joined 2010. And then there was a period of, as there always is in new organizations, of ideological ideological and organizational readjustment, experimentation. Some people came, some people went. Um, Different forms, organizational forms were tried out. Some were good, some didn't work out. Wasn't until our Congress in 2016 that the APL, as we know it today, took its final form. So I would say that even though it has deep roots, going back very far, and even though the American Party of Labor was originally founded in 2008, it isn't until really 2016 that the APL of today came into being. So that's the history of the APL. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the earlier part of your question? I
Oh
got
no,
so
you're
into the
fine.
history.
It was a lot. And then the next question was, um, how many years of experience do most members have?
Varies dramatically.
Yeah.
Some people are old veterans, emphasis on the word old, like me.
I was about to say, like you, Camilo.
I always, sometimes people will come up to me and say, I don't know, sometimes congratulatory things or very nice things. And I say that all I am is an old commie. That's it. I'm just an old commie who's been around for a long time, known a lot of people, seen a lot of shit, and knows where the bodies are buried. Don't quote me on that last part.
Too
Don't.
late.
It's too late. It's out there. So so some people like me who've been around for a long time. There are people who've had experience with other organizations. Uh, we've had people who kind of moved up to us after working with CPUSA and becoming disenchanted and disillusioned with revisionism there, or who have worked with this or that other organization when they come to us with varying degrees of experience and expertise. And there are people who are just newbies, people who are filled with fire and enthusiasm, but they don't have the experience under their belt yet. And that's fine. They'll get it.
Yeah, I was like a fresh born baby when I joined
Mm.
the APL, like which is coming up on a year ago in May. So, um, you know, I you don't have to be an incredibly experienced communist to be able to join the APL. And even if you don't get accepted on your first interview, that's okay. Sometimes it's just a matter of going back and doing some different reading and coming back with a different perspective to re-interview, because we're not trying to be super gatekeepy, but it's more of, I mean, no, I guess in some ways we are, because that's kind of necessary for a communist party to avoid revisionism, because if you just let anybody in who has any idea but not concrete revolutionary theory under their belt, at least a little bit, it can be, that's why we can be a little bit gatekeepy. But that's, again, not necessarily a bad thing when you see other parties and how they operate.
Would you mind if I commented on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Comrade.
I
Please.
believe the term for the I wouldn't call it gatekeeping. I believe the term, I forget who said it. It might be Lenin, might be Stalin. It was better fewer but better.
Hmm.
You don't want to just let anybody in off the street. You have to have temper. It's the vanguard party, of course. They are the utmost of the Marxist Leninists. They are the ones who know the most on this subject. But of course that doesn't mean they're all the grand sort of poopah of all the. Sorry, I'm not great at speaking.
That's okay.
What I'm getting at is that the Vanguard Party should be gate kept, as it should be the most revolutionary of the people.
Well, that goes back to what I said earlier. Not everyone can or should necessarily be a party member.
Right.
Party membership makes demands on you. Party membership, like I said, you are an officer in the revolution as a party member. And we probably need a hell of a lot more in terms of absolute numbers, friends, allies, supporters, sympathizers, than we do actual party members.
Right.
And speaking for myself, I would much rather that we bring in as a new recruit, as a new party member, someone who is genuinely proletarian, someone who is working class 100%, someone who works a factory job, someone who's working uh, uh, two jobs, a single mom raising kids, working a job, going to school. I'd rather have people who have actually dealt with capitalism, who've seen exploitation, who've seen oppression, and who have fire in their bowels and a hatred for oppression and a desire for liberation. I'd rather have that person than someone who has read the entire Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Hoxha collected works and can memorize and can spew off quotes from memory. Hasn't done a single lick of actual struggle in their life.
Right.
Very well put.
Theory can be learned. Life experience has to be lived.
Priceless.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question for Comrade Cat, who could not be here tonight. You kind of actually already answered their second one, so no need for that. But their first question is, would the APL be able to help a new political party with the same line despite being in Australia?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not at all. I mean, we'd have to open up lines of communication, get to know each other. But sure, definitely. That's what internationalism is all about.
American Party, wait, no, not American Party, Australian Party of Labor.
Another APL.
Another APL.
We're
The other
seeing
APL.
double.
Yeah, we're seeing double. Yeah, but to just go a little more in depth there. Yes, comrade, who may be listening to this recording, the APL, our principle of proletarian internationalism would absolutely require us to support, so long as it takes the same party line, you know. But that would also be would it be a question for CPOML, Camilo?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, certainly we would refer, if any group came to us, one of the first things we would ask is, are you familiar with ICMLPO or CPOML? The International Conference of Marxist-Leninist Parties and Organizations, to which we are a member, and which is the main, quote unquote, Hoxhaist organizations of world communist parties. So the first thing we would ask is, are you familiar with ICMLPO and their line? And we would kind of take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So River, if you want to go ahead and type your question into the chat, we'll go ahead and do that. And we are at 15 minutes left in recording. So if we have time, we'll circle back. But we've got, all right, cool. So number one, what has the APL done / planning on doing for / with Native nations / what can I do for Native nations if I don't live or are near reservations? Sorry if it was kind of two questions. So it's basically asking about Native reservations and, if we've done anything with them or if we're planning on it in general.
Okay, that is a very, very complex question. And it ties in not just to the question of Native nations, but even to the essence of organizing as such. Who is the best organizer? Do you just send someone in to some community or some group or some area that they're not connected with, that they're not a part of, and say, okay, go organize these people? Or do we have to find people who have an organic, intrinsic connection with that community? They've lived the experiences of that community. They share the culture of that community. In some cases, speak the language of that community. That second person, that's the ideal organizer. So in terms of Native nations, I'll admit we've not done, or well, we have done some, and we have some established some links with organizers within Native communities. And obviously, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that one. Um, but we need to do more, a lot more. It's hard for me to answer as an outsider. And it's also hard for me to give like a one size fits all response. Not that you're asking for that, but it's hard to give a one size fits all response because so much is dependent on the actual material conditions, the concrete situation, not only of the people we want to organize, but the organizer themselves. A lot of it has to be on a case by case basis. So I can give you a broad stroke answer in the sense of what I just said. The important thing is establishing links with that community, and that's where the organizers will come from within the community. But specifics hard to give without a concrete and very concrete situation to comment on.
Yeah, no, and as Camilo just said, establishing ties within those communities that speak their language and are part of the culture and understand it more intrinsically, I guess not intrinsically, but more just like they're there, like they have that established relationship is incredibly important because the last thing we want to do is try to impose ourselves on a group that doesn't know us, and you know, try to organize them without first understanding them as a community of people, who have their own struggles and their own um, culture and all of these different things that are incredibly important in recognizing and being cognizant of.
There's a wonderful movie out there, which if comrades haven't seen, I highly recommend, called Young Karl Marx. And it basically looks at Karl Marx and Engels and how they met and their relationship in the very, very early days. And there's one scene where Engels, as I'm sure most people listening to me know, came from a bourgeois family and whose family owned factories in Britain. And so he decides that he's going to go organize. Engels decides that he's going to go organize the Irish workers at one of his family's factories. So he goes there during the pub where they all gather after work. He goes there and he makes a speech and he talks about organizing and the need to unite and freedom for Ireland and death to the British Empire. And the Irish workers are just looking at him quietly, nodding their heads. And when Engels finishes, one of them comes up and punches him right in the face.
True
So that's,
comradely behavior.
well, that's not the way you organize people. Um, the answer, I mean, the obvious question that would need to be answered is who are you and why should we listen to you? That's why I said what ideally needs to happen is you need to have people who come from within that community itself. You have to have people who have an organic link to that community. Because otherwise, yeah, who are you and why should we listen to you? And what makes you different from all these other groups that are coming here telling us how we should live and what we should do?
It's also a matter of like, we don't want to just sit there and impose our own ideas on a group that doesn't know us
Of
because
course,
that
of
would
course.
be that would be very counterintuitive to the essence of Marxism-Leninism.
And
So,
and you organize people on the basis of their struggle, on the basis of their concerns, on the basis of their suffering and their dreams and their aspirations. And how can you do that if you don't know it already?
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, wonderful. Let's go ahead. We have 10 minutes left-ish, 10-ish, about 8 minutes left actually. So circling back to number one, Comrade Fred, did you have a second question that you wanted to ask?
Sure. There's a question that I would like to ask, and it's a bit of a broad stroke question. Uh, of course, and it kind of relates back to the first one, of course, with organizers. I don't know how to explain it. Basically, what I'd ask is for people outside of like the APL or even inside the APL who struggle with like day to day things, like they don't have the very good transportation, or they can't drive, or they don't have great education. What can they explicitly do for like the socialist movement? Of course, like these people are very proletarian, but what can they specifically do? Of course, like I mean, there's books written on this, but what's the APL's view on what they can do?
There's a million things you can do. And the most basic thing that you can do, if nothing else, talk to people. Just talk to people. And maybe more important than talking to people, listen to people. Listen to working class people. Listen to their struggles. Listen to their aspirations. Listen to their feelings about life, what they want, what they're fighting. That is the most basic thing. I actually had a conversation about something similar with my son. And I told him there are lots of ways to fight. Yeah, some people fight like this, and I made a motion like pulling the trigger on a gun. But that's not
Right.
the only way to fight. Some people fight like this, and I made a motion like writing. Other people fight like this, and I made a motion like putting my hand to my mouth, like speaking. Other people fight like this, and I made a motion like I was handing out flyers and leaflets. And the people who fight like this, writing, fight like this, speaking, fight like this, handing out flyers and leaflets, are probably more important and more significant than the people who fight like this. And I motion pulling the trigger. There's always something you can do. Always. Even if it's at the very, very basic level of just talking to your friends, coworkers, fellow students, and even family members. But remember, you're not there to preach at them. You're there to listen. Listen and then translate their concerns back in the form of Marxism-Leninism. And I guarantee you, and this is a little experiment that anyone can do, and I've done it a million times, and I know comrades who have also done it a million times. You could talk to any single working class person and give them pure Marxism-Leninism. Just don't say the word, and they will totally agree with you every time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've experienced this with my own family who I've talked about this on the broadcast before, but I have extremely reactionary family members. But when you talk to them without using the jargon that we use, they almost agree with everything that you say right off the bat. And that's pretty significant, as it shows that, you know, it's not necessarily it's about talking to them at a level which is understandable for regular people. Not everybody's out here reading theory, you know.
Yeah.
That's just not that's it's not fair to demand of everybody that they hit the books 8 hours a day, study Marx and Lenin, and then come back. For a lot of people, they're learning on the fly. If you're someone who works full time and has a family and everything, it can be very hard to do study. And not everybody wants to do that. As Camilo was saying, we need just as many allies as we do actual cadre within the party.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that everyone who has studied theory immediately picks up on is when you read Stalin, his tone is very different. His tone is very, very different. And everyone says, oh, Stalin is more accessible. He's more easy to understand. Well, there's a reason for that. Stalin was not an academic leftist. He wasn't writing theory to impress faculty colleagues. He wasn't writing theory in order to get a go from the promotion from the tenure committee. He wasn't trying to get published in some academic journal. He was talking to everyday common people in the language of everyday common. And so take a
Right.
note from, and so take a leaf from Stalin's notebook. That's what you need to do. Speak to everyday people in everyday language. Listen to their concerns. And then give it back to them.
Yeah, he was incredibly pragmatic, and
Yeah.
it's, Stalin in many ways was a true proletarian. I mean,
Yeah.
he was born into a working class family and was organizing from being a teenager, in the seminary. So, the guy was speaking from a lot of experience and a lot of, I would say, empathy in a lot of ways for the fact that sometimes, sitting in a nice Swiss coffee shop and writing all of this eloquent theory isn't what you need to be doing. Sometimes it is, in fact, other things. And that was a little dig at Trotsky. Sorry. I had to do it. But yeah, we're coming to the end of time here. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to all of your questions. Camilo, is it okay if folks reach out to you individually to have questions answered that didn't get answered today?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Awesome. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. And I appreciate you all coming with such well thought out questions. And yeah, this was a wonderful panel, and I'm excited to continue hearing from you all on the show and otherwise.
It
And
was a pleasure to be here.
And thank you, Comrade Felicity, for having me. Thank all the comrades who joined us or had questions. It was a great time. Let's do it again.
Oh, I
All right.
was wondering if we had more questions, would we forward that to like an email or anything like that?
Why don't you pass it on to, I think we established, we don't want to get into details here, but we established a kind of communication thing when we were
Yeah.
setting up. Post the questions there.
Yeah, just repost them over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and get started.